5-9J. C-Dub on the beat. Back against the wall, CL20's knocking rated. IGI's tripping, validated, shoot ready. Brown and
What's good with everybody, man? I hope everybody's having a productive day, feeling blessed. And like I always say, it's one life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right. Let's get it done. So with that being said, man, my subscribers are keeping me busy, bro. Trust me, I have so many articles that I got to do, and I'm just going day by day, just one right after the other, one right after the other. And then people in the comment section leave subjects. Bro, I ain't got no social life. I go to work, go to sleep, come home, do a video, go to work, sleep. And on my days off, I'm just stuck right here. Video after video after video, edit it, edit, edit. But you guys are giving me something great to look forward to stay off the streets, to stay out of trouble. It's not like I had a social life to begin with. So anyways, let's get into this video. It's going to be a part 2 of my previous video. So with that being said, hit that subscribe button, hit that like, always leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Check the links in the description for my Apple and Spotify music. Go ahead and run my streams up. And you can check out my playlist section on my YouTube channel and check out my music right there. Thank you guys for you guys' time. Most importantly, thank you guys for you guys' support. Now, for those of you that watched my video about the avenues and what took place with that 15-year-old kid in accordance to the green light, the video I dropped, this was going to be in a continuance. And there's going to be a continuance after this one. So we're still talking about the Avenue Street Gang, 57th Street branch. Obviously, the avenues have been a big part of, you know, the Mexican Mafia. One of the biggest neighborhoods that's always been connected to the Mexican Mafia. The Mexican Mafia has made their living off just by this hood alone, their enforcement of the Mexican Mafia rules and regulations and foot soldiers, and how many people have committed themselves, from young kids to adults, to the Avenue Street Gang in accordance to the Mexican Mafia policies in their hierarchy. So we all know about Alex Aguirre, Peewee, the oldest brother. You know, he's one of the 4 Mexican Mafia members that were made around the time the avenues in the 90s were doing it really big. We're talking about Tigre, we're talking about Boxer, and we're talking about, I believe it was another individual, Psycho Aguirre, I believe. So you had 4 Mexican Mafia members from one neighborhood, all in control of the avenues. So with a lot of made members into the Mexican Mafia, this neighborhood had a lot of power, a lot of flexibility, and a lot of muscle. We're talking about a group that ended up with 600 members, and by the year 2000, ended up with thousands of members. And trust me, I met a lot of people. I just don't remember their names all the time. One in particular, I met Joker from Avenues. He was my neighbor. He was sold up with a Sureño from Whittier. What was his name? Porky or Spanky from Whittier? He was my neighbor. But he was on the SNY, and dude had a lot of, like, cause he worked for a carnal for like 20 years. So he had a lot of power and influence on the SNY side. Because people already knew his name. People knew the individual he was. So, you know, he got what he wanted. He was friends with everybody, and obviously he had the dope too. So this took place in the 90s. You had Big Peewee. Obviously, right before he became a Mexican Mafia member, while he was an associate, he was a hardcore drug dealer. So while he was getting inducted into the Mexican Mafia, you know, obviously he started recruiting his little manpower, his little entourage, his associates, people that were going to work strictly for him. Well, he recruited an individual who wanted to become a drug dealer as well. His name was Alan Downey. Now, Alan pretty much looked up to Alex. They were associated with Alex all the time, and he pretty much told Alex, like, man, I'm trying to get into the dope game, bro. I'm trying to put some weight, man. I'm, you know, put some weight in my hands. Alex puts him on. But he kind of knew that Alan didn't want to just sell, you know, nickels and dimes. Alan wanted his own territory. Alan wanted his own product. Alan wanted his own clientele. So Alex at the time gave him exclusive rights to Burbank, California. The exclusive rights to the whole territory and surrounding territories of Burbank. Because Burbank at the time, I guess, in the 90s, you know, was a area of entertainment. You know, you had all the celebrities out there in Burbank. You know, everybody, you know, it was a place to party, from what I was told. So he got into that business of selling drugs out in Burbank, and it became a lucrative business, but it had conditions. The conditions were that he can have Burbank and all those territories, but he had to buy all his product from Big Peewee at a premium price, plus pay a 10% tax of all his earnings to the Mexican Mafia. So Alan agrees with it. They do this for quite some time. But during the process, a lot of the clientele that Alan was able to develop in the city of Burbank and those surrounding areas were pretty much telling him, like, hey, man, this dope is bunk, bro. This is foo-foo. It's fugazi. So Alan looked for a different product, and he found an individual named Sleepy Garcia. Sleepy Garcia had a better quality product. So what Alan was doing is he was pretty much buying all the dope that he could from Sleepy, but on the same token, still purchasing whatever he needed to purchase from Alex, Big Peewee, just to keep Alex satisfied and keep Alex out the loop that, you know, he was buying dope from somebody else and making a lot more money, selling better product. And then when that ran out, he sell Alex's bunk stuff and then give Alex whatever he could and say, I only made this with your bunk dope and here's your 10% tax. Well, Alex gets caught up. He gets caught up in a RICO case and gets federally indicted and gets sent to federal prison. But, you know, with the business agreement that they had, and plus Alex's territory, wherever he was selling at in the avenues, was a lucrative business that, you know, couldn't be abandoned. So who steps up to the plate? Alex's little brother, Little Peewee. See, Alex only caught wind because Alan was buying dope from the other person, but still buying dope from Alex at the time. But Alan started talking to other people saying, man, yeah, Alex dope is bunk, bro. Don't go there. Come to me, man. I got you. Word travels. It's the streets. Everybody talks. Everybody whispers. Word gets back to Little Peewee that not only is he talking smack about his big brother's dope, but he's also buying dope from another individual, making money, and he's not paying taxes, and he's still claiming the Burbank territory. Obviously, the drug business is a scandalous business. So Alex presses Sleepy Garcia, and he tells him, he gives him an ultimatum because he knows that he's supplying Alan. He's like, look, man, either you take care of Alan or you're going to get the green light, bro. Plain and simple. And dude denied it. Off the bat, he didn't want no involvement with the prison politics, the Emmett politics. He didn't even respect that this dude was a 15-year-old kid who's never done nothing, just happened to take over his brother's business. He couldn't respect this kid. So the kid obviously attacked him with a knife, you know, threatened him, like, I'm going to put you on cipher, I'm going to put you on the green light, I'm going to get that shit sanctioned just for you disobeying me. Alex, what does he do? Little Peewee, he gathers a bunch of individuals from the avenues, some enforcers. They start putting in work, they start collecting taxes, they start knocking down a lot of people on the basis that he was trying to present himself to be respected because obviously everybody knows the situation. Bro, you only got it because you're your brother. We only know you because you're your brother. So this was his time and his opportunity to flex his muscle. Around this time, Alan, he was doing like private business stuff with other people. One of his lucrative businesses that he actually did have at the time was with a car repossession company. Pretty much, Alan had a lot of foot soldiers. Alan had soldiers and you know, muscle. Told these individuals, look, I'll supply my manpower to make sure that all your repossessions go smooth. Nobody's trying to put up a fight. Nobody's running away. We're going to threaten all these people to turn over their cars. In exchange, you'll get the car. You get the money. You get whatever it is that the bank's going to give you. But you're going to let me drive all these cars. Because he wanted to be driving in all the fancy cars, the lucrative cars, the expensive cars, the nice cars. What difference would it have made, right? He's going to run up the mileage a few hundred. He's going to sell his dope in these vehicles. It was kind of his way of saying, like, nobody knows what car I'm going to be driving in, so nobody could locate me. The cops can't locate me. Nobody is going to know. So I'm going to keep switching cars little by little, every couple of months, every couple of days. That was the business agreement that they had. So he was always seen in different cars. So it made it look like he was balling out of control. So he purchases a Toyota. It was a green Toyota at the time. And he's driving it around. And he's on Eagle Rock Boulevard. And he's obviously going to go, I guess he told his girlfriend at the time they had a motel. And he told her that he was going to go push some away, make a couple of runs, and he was going to be back. That's what she told the cops later on. That's all she knew of. So he's on this boulevard, and Peewee winds up picking up Gangster Marquez, the one individual that everybody talks about, Gangster from Avenues. Picks him up in a vehicle. They're driving on the same boulevard. And just, you know, by the stroke of luck, by just coincidence, they pass by and notice Alan's driving this Toyota. So Peewee tells Gangster, hey, man, flip around, get next to him. Pulls up next to him, recognizes that it's actually him, pulls out a gun and starts firing. Alan presses the gas. Now they're driving like this, like on some Fast and Furious stuff. And Alex is pretty much just dumping out the window. Hits Alan several times. Alan's actually just wrecks his car. Now, the one thing you would do is, okay, man, I think I shot him. I'm pretty sure I shot him. Out of all these bullets that I let off, I'm pretty sure some of them landed. And then he wrecked his car, and his car was pretty much damaged. Peewee, arrogant, wanted to see for sure if this individual was gone. So he tells Gangster to pull over next to the vehicle. Little Peewee gets out of the vehicle, goes up to the car, but he puts his hands on top of the hood. on top of the car, leans in, and just to make matters even worse, lets off more shots just to ensure that Alan's gone, that they took his life, and gets back in the car. Now, mind you, the mistake that he made was putting his hands on top of the car and unloading inside the car. Left his fingerprints there, but he was 15 years old at the time. So the database to run fingerprints for the adult system obviously didn't have his fingerprints at the time. Years go by as they're investigating this case. Gangster from Avenues is already getting busted for other crime sprees that he's went on, other different 187 implications that were brought upon him. So he's busted. Peewee winds up getting busted for multiple hot ones on other cases too. Peewee's 20 years old already. And obviously, his fingerprints come up in the database that he happens to have fingerprints on this car from a 1995 hot one. So obviously, they're going to bring charges up to him. But there's not enough evidence. Because one thing I read about the Avenues gang in this article that I recently came across is that the reason why the other video, that 15-year-old kid's crime, wasn't public, wasn't all over the news, wasn't broadcasted to everybody, wasn't published in the newspapers, like making it a point like, hey man, a 15-year-old kid died at the hands of a prison gang and a street gang, was because that so much violence was occurring at the time. So much unsolved violence was being occurred at the time because back then, you know, the forensic teams, the lack of evidence, a lot of these dudes were actually just going around shooting people, doing drive-bys, just leaving bullet shells. If your fingerprint wasn't on the bullet shell, it's hard to build a case when you can't recover a gun. And it's hard to build a case when some of these kids were not in a database system for the fingerprints as adults, when a lot of these kids were 13, 14, 15-year-old kids taking each other out over street gangs and political nonsense. But a lot of these crimes, even back then, weren't public news because obviously they felt like within the area, it could be local news, but publicly, who cares? And that was the part that tripped me out about this article is they specified, who cares? What does regular society, what does the rest of the world care about what this small neighborhood and this small town and the streets of Los Angeles of a bunch of kids taking each other out over gang violence? Nobody cares. They're going to do what they want. We're going to brush it under the rug. We'll either solve it or unsolve it. So it was very disappointing because like I told you guys, I've lived that lifestyle. And to know that a lot of things that I've done, I've got away with, a lot of things that a lot of my homies have got away with, maybe public information, publicly broadcasting this kind of information, you know, it could help cases. So you're talking about a lot of unresolved issues and a lot of unsolved cases have been going by unresolved because the media doesn't care about what takes place within these gangs. And that's probably something that a lot of these gang members and these gang culture and these gang leaders think about, like, bro, nobody cared. And it trips me out because I watched the old movie. It was a mafia movie. And they got mad because the mafia hitman took out a kid. And the mafia boss was like, hey, bro, it's one thing the FBI don't care when a mobster takes out another made mobster. They don't care. Let it happen. Let them kill each other. But when you take out a kid, you bring heat to us. I thought about the same concept. Like, man, we can get away with all this because nobody cares. We can get away with all these green lights and taking one another out, selling all this dope because the rest of the world don't care what we do down here. So we get away with it a lot more than people think and people care to notice. So that registered in my head when I read this article. So anyways, the evidence comes back and they try to implicate little Peewee on him. But while he was facing other charges, he was like, you know what? I'll plea out. I'll take a plea deal on manslaughter charges. They weren't having that. The prosecution, the DA were like, man, this kid's going to get away with everything that they know about this case. He was green lighted, and that's why they blasted him, because he wasn't paying Emmett taxes. The Mexican Mafia sanctioned the green light, and this kid was 15 years old, and he's just going to walk away with a slap on the wrist? So no, they called in more investigators. They called in a bunch of people, well-experienced people in the law, and that had good conviction rates. They wanted to build this case on Gangsta, Peewee, JoJo, a lot of people that were involved in a lot of these hot ones. Trust me, there's more to the story. That's why there's going to be another part of the video. But just with the evidence that they possessed, just with the evidence alone, it wasn't enough to secure a conviction. It really wasn't. But they managed to get 2 individuals willing to testify. First, one of the main individuals that was conducting the investigation and putting the case together was the same individual who convicted Luis Pelon Maciel. You guys know about him. Pelon, Mexican Mafia member, got indicted and convicted of 4 hot ones, 2 Emmett dropouts, the Maxon Road thing with Weddle Shaw and all them. He was one of the individuals that got that individual convicted in the first place. So he knew a lot about Mexican Mafia politics. He was well educated. He had, connections to certain gang experts and gang witnesses that can illustrate to the jury what the Mexican Mafia is, what it's like, and why these street soldiers work for them, to convince the jury about the 15-year-old that got green-lighted, and this individual got green-lighted for not paying Emmett taxes. So they built a case of 2 witnesses. One of them was Trooper Ramirez, who happened to be a former member of the Avenues gang, who got green-lighted for skimming from Mexican Mafia money because he was part of the Avenues, but he didn't care about Mexican Mafia politics and their tactics. He didn't care nothing about that. So he tried to come up on them, and they green-lighted him for it. Then you had another individual named Jimmy Maxon. He was in the federal prison in Minnesota. Had nothing against none of these guys whatsoever. All he wanted to do is just, start a fresh life, and hopefully this would help him with his case factors in prison to get him out early. These guys wound up being the big dogs in the case. Their testimony and their expert witness, and being the fact that they were able to corroborate everything that took place with the 15-year-old that got green-lighted, as well as what took place with this situation and how the hierarchy works. So they managed to convince the jury. What they did is they illustrated the hierarchy of the Mexican Mafia, how it really works. Then they illustrated how Peewee, Little Peewee, Jojo Ramirez, and other individuals that are like 6 associates, how they pretty much ran and operated the Avenue Street Gang, and how the Avenue Street Gang and what its territory was like, and how they operated, how they controlled it, how they exploited it for the money, the finance, for the money, the drugs, and the manpower, and pretty much the obedience of the people. And they were able to pin that 15-year-old's death, as well as this one, and along with a lot of others, because like I said, Gangster from Avenues was charged with a lot of other indictments, pretty much all in one. But they did it trial by trial by trial. First on this case, first on this case, first on this case. So you had all these individuals. You had 8 indictments, 8 defendants charged for 7 hot ones, because the prosecution was not going to allow that these individuals were going to get away with something as a slap in the wrist, a manslaughter. They convinced the jury, and they brought it up with every evidence, with every fact, with every amount of information that they could about the Avenues and the prison politics and how the Mexican Mafia works. And it was able to solidify conviction to get all these individuals convicted. One, for a 15-year-old kid that got green-lighted because he told Gangster. This one in particular, in which they green-lighted the individual because he wasn't paying his 10% tax, as well as a few other cases that I'll be talking about in the near future. But I wanted to share that story with you guys. The one thing that gets to me too as well, besides the whole we're not publicizing gang violence anymore, like who cares, is the fact that you got to remember you had an older brother. Obviously he was ambitious. Obviously he wanted to become a Mexican Mafia member. Obviously that he did, and he had a lot of power. Even if he didn't want to influence his younger brother in his life, just by being around his younger brother and by his younger brother noticing these kind of things, that was his role model. That's who he looked up to. That's who he wanted to mimic. That's who he wanted to. And when the opportunity permitted, when Alex needed somebody to work for him and take over his drug business, who did he turn to? He could have turned to any other associate, any other right-hand man, any other older dude from the Avenues that he trusted with his business. But no, he turned to a 15-year-old kid. A 15-year-old kid who hasn't really developed mentally on how to think and how to think like an adult, but yet gave all this responsibility to a 15-year-old kid. And what does this 15-year-old kid do? Gun somebody down in their vehicle because he felt like nobody was respecting what he was and who he was. And just because he was 15 years old, he hasn't had that sinister mentality, that sinister reputation like his brother and every other Mexican Mafia member that was from Avenues, all his other homeboys that he looked up to. He didn't have that reputation yet. So in order to gain respect on the streets, he took out an older dude that wasn't paying taxes and just so happened to be not paying taxes to the Mexican Mafia. And that's how he was able to get noticed, by driving up to another individual, broad daylight on a boulevard, and dumping through his vehicle. 15-year-old boy. So we have 2 15-year-old boys, one that loses his life because he got involved with something that he wasn't aware of. He didn't know how it was going to transpire. He was too young to understand. Then you got a 15-year-old who's obviously brainwashed, obviously been manipulated and heavily influenced to follow in his older brother's footsteps. So we got to pay attention to who looks up to us, man, and the role models that we want to be to others, man, because obviously he took over his brother's footsteps and he's also doing time in prison as we speak. So stay tuned for the upcoming video that I'm going to put together. Give me a little bit of time. So with that being said, like I always say, it's one life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right. Let's get it done. Peace.